Fairbairn?
Fairbairn.
Fairbairn.
Yeah, there we go.
All right.
She
Sometimes it's
still
easy
calls
to
me
start
Fairbrain, so.
That's what it sounds like. That's what it looks like. We're going to start over and then do this quickly. All right, guys. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Nisnas Industries HQ. This time we're a little bit mobile. Welcome to Libira. Libira is our local hangout and an amazing brewery and bar here in Haifa. If you're in town, by all means come by. It's amazing. They make their own beer. They also have some stellar whiskey, and the food is to die for. So, I mean, thanks to Libira for hosting us, and hopefully this is the first of several times that we'll be here. All right, so today we have Josh Fairbairn, who is our friend and partner and manufacturing partner as well. And we're here to talk a little bit about how to do production and larger scale production. So, and how to work across borders in China. And for us, it's been a real adventure and a really positive one. And the idea is to try to share the lessons that we've learned and from your vast experience doing this, and then just letting the world know like lessons learned, the best ways to tackle challenges and so on.
Sure.
So just a little bit about you would be great.
Yeah, sure. So
maybe before we start, just a quick drink.
L'chaim.
L'chaim. There you go.
Yeah, I guess I'll start from the beginning. So I grew up in Toronto, Canada, as you know, and I did a volunteer project with my church where I learned to speak Mandarin when I was about 19. After that, I went down to the US for school studying biochem, which was not my speed. So I dropped out and moved to China with $500 and a plane ticket. And I didn't really know what I was doing, but I just knew that that was the direction that I wanted to be headed. So it took some balls for sure, but it just felt right. Like now looking back in hindsight, it did seem ballsier, but at the time it was, you know when you have that type of feeling and you're just like, I gotta do this, right?
How old were you?
I was 22.
And you were now 31?
I'm 30.
30.
Yeah. And which, like we've been saying the last couple of days, time really flies. It's
Seriously. Crazy
that I've been in China for like 6-7 years.
Yep.
So when I got out there, initially my plan was to go and work for the Canadian embassy in Shanghai. But like right before my plane was taking off and I was getting ready to go, I was like, working for the embassy, for the government is even worse than being in university. And so I was just doing research. I knew that products were manufactured in China. I knew that I wanted to have my own business, and I thought products was a pretty good place to start. So just doing my research, I found out about the Canton Fair. And so I went there, and it's different now, the way that China is growing at like just an incredible growth pace. So now, seeing a white guy that speaks Chinese isn't as much of a rarity as it used to be. It's still, my level of Chinese and my level of whiteness and just my size and everything, it's still, people are still surprised. But when I got there, they were like jaw drop everywhere I went, right? So I was doing stand-up comedy. I was rapping at clubs, basically doing anything I could to make money.
But we need to stop there because that's pretty amazing. You were doing stand-up comedy in Chinese.
That was all from my mission, right, with my church.
Yeah.
I think when you're at such close quarters with people, usually people move to a new country and they hang out with people from their country, especially the Chinese. Like that's, Chinatown is like a good example of that.
Yeah.
But on that experience, I was with Chinese people every day, right, and helping them, and they didn't speak English. So I was forced into it, and I like making people laugh, and that's super important to me.
Very cool.
And so I kind of just picked it up accidentally. But yeah, so I went to the Canton Fair. I started meeting these bosses of like these $100 million factories where I had no business being. But because I was this rarity, people would talk to me. And they'd pick me up in their Porsches and their Mercedes and take me out for nice dinners and singing KTV and stuff. And so through that, I made some really good friends. And I basically just put together a Rolodex of all of these different factories and what they do and how they did them and who could produce things fast and who could produce what materials, and because every factory can only do one thing, right? I mean, the really big ones, maybe they have a couple processes, but you don't want to rely on one factory for doing more than really one process.
Yeah.
And so I just narrowed it down, right? I probably, in the first 2 years I was in China, I probably visited 3,000 to 5,000 factories, like 3 a day, every day. Maybe not 3 to 5,000, a couple thousand.
That's pretty amazing.
It was a lot. 3 factories a day, basically, for 2 years.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I just cut them down. You know, a lot of them were shit, a lot of them were great, a lot of them were somewhere in between.
Yeah.
A lot of them were good at this, but said they were good at this and didn't really know what they were good at.
Right.
There's a lot of young money in China, so these factories that are $100 million market cap are 10 years old, right? And they've just skyrocket growth. It's easy to hire, it's easy to get employees, so they grow really fast. And yeah, that kind of, all of that just happened on accident, basically.
That's interesting. So growing so quickly, I mean, that's in such a dynamic market, you got to be like really savvy to be able to work through that.
For me, you mean?
Yeah.
Honestly, I was really lucky. I was brave and I made some bold decisions, but my timing was like, you know, have you read Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell?
Oh.
So, I mean, his stuff's a bit cheesy and clickbaity, but he talks about how Bill Gates, you know, went to the school that had computers, right? It was kind of like that for me, right? I just had a couple things happen that lined this up for me, right? I think opportunity is when good luck, or luck is when opportunity meets preparation, right? So.
Right. So let's fast forward to Morpho.
Sure.
So you built Morpho. It's 2013, is that right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about how you built that from the beginning to where we are today.
Sure.
So 5 years down, right?
5 years with a 2-year personal stuff in the middle that I kind of just didn't really do anything and traveled.
Yep.
But yeah, so I guess the genesis of the company is I did all that work and I wanted to make my own product, which was the pair of headphones we talked about.
Yeah.
Long story short, it went really well, except for the product. Everything was lined up, all of the dominoes were falling over, and yeah, I got screwed, right? It just didn't work.
Yeah, maybe we should explain. We talked about this earlier. So you wanted to make these headphones, right?
Yeah.
These amazing headphones, and then the product came out not good.
Yeah, we made $20,000 in our Indiegogo campaign the first day, basically. I went out to the factory to get the prototype and it was junk.
Shit.
Yeah. And so I was down and out for like 4 to 6 months, just crying about my sad life. And, but then I always say it's a little cheesy, but out of the ashes, I just found a lucrative idea to help people not have what happened to me.
Cool.
So I hit up everybody on Kickstarter, really rode that wave, and people responded really well. The first year we had 100 customers, and very quickly it just got to be too big. And so I had to hire people. Now I have 2 partners and we have 30 employees with offices in Hong Kong, Guangzhou, and India.
How many again? 30?
30.
30. Amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Just because we're a little bit short on time, I mean, it's an amazing story, and I'd love to dive all the way into it.
No worries.
But it's probably a good idea to get into kind of like lessons learned so that we can share as much as possible, like
Sure.
from people's experiences, just so that as much can be learned from the half an hour that we have.
Absolutely.
So let's start from our end. So
Okay.
we're a small company, and we make these small whiskey tumblers. Let's say we're interested in working with you guys, or any manufacturer.
Sure.
So what are the challenges, in your opinion, of choosing a manufacturing partner in China?
So,
like what do's and don'ts?
Yeah, I think the don'ts is people are so focused on price. And I don't think it's that important until you're a big company, right? Like now, with 30 employees, I'm just starting to think about profitability and how to increase our margins. Mm-hmm. I think the main problem people do is they go into Chinese factories and say, I need it cheaper, because they don't want to get ripped off, right? They don't want to feel like they're getting taken advantage of. They're new businesses. They don't want to feel like they're chumps.
Yeah.
And so they go in and they bargain for price. Factories are basically commodity driven, right? A product, like for your tumbler, costs the amount of wood, the amount of metal, the amount of labor, and assembly, and that's it, right? Plus margins. And so people go in and they start trying to negotiate too hard, and they think they're sly and savvy. But what happens is they end up with a shit product, because Chinese factories want the business, so they'll do anything to get it. And they're like, yeah, we can do it for that price. And then they end up with something that's not good, and they blame the factory, but really it's just their insistence on getting a lower price. So do your research.
Yep.
Get a wide range of pricing, because there is people that will charge more and there will that will charge less.
Yeah.
Get an average price. Pick 5 options. Figure out how to get a budget to sample with all of them. And then do that. And then whoever has the best communication, pricing that matches up with, kind of aligns with what you need, quality, timing, and just make an assessment on all of the options.
So how do you, let's say there are a couple of people doing a similar job. How do you choose between them? You have a couple of people offering to give you a similar service. Let's say you've gotten to a similar price.
Yep.
What do you think is the most important thing to look for in your manufacturing partner? Let's say after you've, I think that's very good advice. You put price aside, you know you've got the right price.
Right.
What now?
Yeah, price will come, right? With quantity, price will naturally go down.
Yeah.
I'm a people person. I look for people. And that's not limited to manufacturing. Anytime I do anything, I make my final decision based on how the people are. Now, you're going to China, you don't understand the language, you don't understand the personalities, you don't understand the humor. That makes it tough. And
is there any humor? Can I just ask, is there humor?
Chinese are funny.
Yeah, are they?
But it's very lyrical. It's very play on words, right? Because you have one word with different intonations, same pronunciation.
Yeah.
And so they use that to play on words and stuff. That's how I did my stand-up. But yeah, when you don't know those things, it is tough, sure. So base it on their systems, base it on their communication. Yeah. Are they trying to make it work, or are they just being obnoxious, right? Yeah. The people at the end of the day are gonna be the make or break factor, in my opinion.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about communication.
Sure.
So for us, and it's probably going to be easier to talk just straight from our experience.
Yeah.
Use some of our examples and then try to have that work for you guys, and then you can understand from our process exactly how to build your own project. So let's start from a previous product that we had, our coal flask. We had a product which is an elongated flask, and that's actually how we met. We met discussing how to make.
When did we talk first?
Oh God, it must have been 2015, I think.
It was spotty at first, right? Like we'd talk every couple of months, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
And then finally it was just like, all right, let's give it a go.
Yeah, it's worth discussing actually, because we were manufacturing locally.
Yeah.
Everything that we did was local.
Yeah.
And the issue with manufacturing locally is that you cannot get a price on quantity.
Right.
You can't.
Yeah.
Or we couldn't anyway.
Yeah.
So we started getting more and more orders. The product became more and more popular, and our manufacturer gave us the same quality and the same price going up. In other words, the quality wasn't getting better with quantity, and the price wasn't getting lower because he just couldn't.
Yeah.
It was just a one-man show. It was not possible.
Right.
So that's when we communicated. We talked several times.
Yeah, that's when price does matter, right? When your quantity is going up.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because I think what people have a struggle to understand is it's like doing anything, right? You set up a supply chain for this SKU.
Right.
It takes time to perfect the supply chain. So your first order of 1,000, it takes some extra time, there's some problems, whatever. The second one will be smoother and the product will be better, because we're talking about people. There are people on the line doing this, right? Yeah. And they become more familiar with the product. They've done it more times, and they just understand how to make it better, which then lead times are shorter, and management of the supply chain doesn't have to put as much time on it, so price comes down.
Right. and that becomes even more important because we're dealing, like especially most of the people watching, hopefully, will be Kickstarter people.
Yeah.
And Kickstarter people are all about the project.
Yeah.
I mean, we have this one project. Let's make it happen. Let's make it as good as possible. Yeah. Not many people are thinking far enough in the future about what the future of this product will be.
Yeah.
So there's kind of like all right, what we have our moment right now, and then we have our moment 6 months in the future of what will happen later on. So I think it's a little bit difficult to tell creator, like, it's the beginning of a process because they want it now.
Yeah, I mean,
but
the
I think
sooner people figure that out, the better, because
right.
Nothing happens overnight, right? You can't just expect to be good at anything overnight. And every new project, every new SKU,
right.
all is a new supply chain, all is new workers, right? I think it gets significantly easier to understand if you think about the people who make them. Right? Like they're humans on the other end making this, figuring out, oh wow, if I do it like this, it's a little faster.
Yeah.
Right? And it just takes time. So I think Kickstarter, crowdfunding people in general have to be more patient. And if you're not in it to make a business, it's probably not the right thing.
In other words, if you're in it for the project, not the business.
I don't think it's a good idea. There's not money to be made on a first project. It's a lot of time and stress.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's how I am. What's the point unless you're trying to do it?
And how about we stress that like super, like as strongly as we can. There is no money to be made on the first project. Is that right, Max? Yeah, I mean, it should be part of your business plan for sure. But if anyone is looking to make $1 million off of a Kickstarter project, like good luck.
Yeah.
It's not there. It is, but it is a good way to be able to start something. And
that
brings us to our
platform.
Our second product that we worked with you was on this tumbler.
Yeah.
And that was a totally different story because I think we were more in the mindset of that. So we were like, okay, this we know we can scale it up. It's the beginning of a 2, 3, 4 year long adventure into manufacturing, and then that became wonderful for us because I'll just tell the story of it.
Sure.
So we made this tumbler, and then it got into the market and did well, and then we created another tumbler, which is this one called the Madison, and then we were able to get more representation in the United States, in Germany, in China, and in Japan, and all of a sudden we got quite a few POs, and we created something meaningful out of it, something more meaningful out of it, and that's where we started making these in the thousands and not in the hundreds, and our experience was, it was an adventure. Like manufacturing is an adventure. I mean, it's definitely...
It's a good attitude to have, honestly.
Yeah.
It's not like any business process is an adventure.
Yeah.
Right? Like, sorry to interrupt, but everything that I've done as a CEO of Morpho, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm a dropout, right?
Yeah.
And I think just being able to say, I think this might work, and trying, and then quickly making the decision, did it work or didn't it? And then pivoting to a new decision is the key for not only manufacturing, but really all leadership in business.
Yeah. Agreed. Let's switch to prototyping quickly.
Sure.
We were having a discussion yesterday about your guys' ability to do prototyping that's relatively quickly, and then offering that to people that are able to get onto Kickstarter with that. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So I think right now there's a bit of a loophole, and I want to talk about this so much until Kickstarter hears me and changes the loophole, because I think it's something that's possible. Right now, Kickstarter says to do a campaign, you need a video of a prototype that works. The loophole is, how do they know if it works, right?
How do they know if the product works?
They don't know, right? It's just a video. If it looks like it works, as far as they know it works. So that's the first part, is a prototype that looks like it works. With something like yours, that's the same as a real one.
Right.
But for a tech product or something that involves, more development, you could save a lot of money, And the second part is just proving that it works through science and facts. So, 2 decades ago, you wanted to come to the market with a camera. You needed to be Sony or have a Walmart budget, right? You needed some serious human and cash capital and resources. Kickstarter comes along. Now you can get to market in 4 to 6 months with other people's money. What we want to do, so we started this initiative called First to Market. We believe that we can get you to a Kickstarter campaign in 4 to 6 ideas, 4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 ideas, yes.
4 to 6 weeks with the napkin sketch idea.
Yeah.
So nothing too complex, just an idea. And there's 4 steps: 2D conceptualization, 3D engineering, 3D rendering, and CNC prototyping. So people talk all the time, 3D prototyping is like a trendy buzzword.
Right.
3D prototyping is garbage, right? You can do like Yoda heads or like a cheesy 3D model of your family dog.
This is stuff that Max says all the time.
It's shit.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and it's going to change the future of manufacturing, but it's a super immature technology, and people are overhyping it. So what we do instead is CNC prototyping, and there are campaigns we've done on Kickstarter that you may or may not have seen, that when you watch the video, it looks exactly like the product that's delivered.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for Kickstarter to catch on, and I'm hoping other people catch on and do this idea with us, because rather than spending, Kickstarter's, the landscape's changed. If you want to make a big campaign, you need to be a company. The days of here's my minimalist wallet and making 500 grand are over, right? Unless you have a crazy team.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other discussion. We were discussing this yesterday, and for the most part, that's true.
Yeah.
For the most part.
There's obviously outliers and exceptions, but so my goal is to say, you don't need these big teams that are kind of taking over Kickstarter. You need 10 to 20 grand and a good idea, and we can do the rest to get you campaign ready, then make your money, then spend the money on development, right? Like MVP in the hardware world, minimum viable product for the people that don't know, is the most important thing. Why are you spending money before you know if people even want your shit? Prove people want it, make money, then spend money to develop it out, right?
All right, so while we're doing it, how do you suppose that people do this?
Get 10 to 20 grand. Get a product and send us the 10 to 20 grand. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, at the end of the day, you need to have a good idea. We get bad ideas every day. I get 5 to 10 leads a day, and me personally, not a company, like people see me on LinkedIn. Yeah. 90% of them, we're just too busy or they don't have the funds. I want to help founders and creators and startups as much as I can, but you either need to have a really good idea or some money, right? It takes some money to make some money, and if you're not willing to throw down on your own idea, then how confident are you really?
Right. So let's take a step back and discuss a little bit about what we discussed yesterday.
Yeah. Because
this is important in order to get a decent background into whether or not to go into a Kickstarter project at all. So moving some tables. So it's worth mentioning. We spent the day yesterday discussing how Kickstarter is changing. So Kickstarter, to a certain extent, has become a bit of a different game in 2019 and 2018 than it was in 2016 or 2015 or 2014, for that matter. It used to be you could just go in with a simple product, and then if it was cool, you could penetrate the market and then get a whole bunch of people to look at it. And a few things have changed. First of all, there are more people on Kickstarter. Second of all, there are more people on Kickstarter using Facebook in order to do Facebook ads. That means that getting yourself out there means you have to spend more money. So before you even start, you need a pretty big marketing budget in order to make something happen. So it's become, and this is why Josh says that you need to be a bigger player.
Yeah.
You absolutely do, because you need, in order to get your head above the noise, you need to have much more capital. So
Or a better idea.
or a better idea,
Which,
but even if
frankly,
you have a better idea,
yeah.
you still need to get your head above the noise.
Ish, but good. Like, okay, so I got cut from my basketball team when I was 15. I'm a good basketball player.
Yeah, where are we going with this?
You'll
Josh?
see. I played like with some current NBA players.
Yeah.
I was pretty good.
Yeah.
I tore my leg. I actually moved to China to try to play basketball, but I tore my ligaments in both my knees.
Oh.
Like 6 months apart. Brutal. Anyways, I got cut from my grade 10 AAU team, like a rep team.
Yeah.
And my dad, being the dad type, was like, if you were Michael Jordan, because I got cut because I was from a different city. Everyone was from the same city except me. I was probably the 7th or 8th best player, objectively, honestly, not biased. My dad said, if you were Michael Jordan, if you were number 1, you were not getting cut no matter what the politics are. So ideas, objectively, are better and worse.
Yes, I agree.
If you're the best,
yeah.
sure you need to do the work. But if you have an idea for, something that's never been done before, nobody can touch you, you're good.
Agreed. So I think if you have that, I mean, that's a lot simpler, but again, that's 1 in
1,000.
Right. All right, so it's important to note, people are starting to come in, so it's getting a little bit more noisy.
I like that Haifa gets jumping at this time.
Yeah, I wish it were true. I think they're just opening up the place. So we'll just end on one last question, I think, just because it's important for us. And that is how we communicate with you guys. So Morpho has been a great asset for us. So I just want to make sure that people understand that. And part of that has been how we communicate. So just a couple of tips for people out there on how to communicate, and I'd love your feedback on this too. Weekly updates for us have been vital, very, very good. Making sure that we're clear on numbers. In other words, we want to make sure that we know. Was that?
I just tell you to take notes.
Oh yeah, seriously. Making sure that we're clear on numbers and making sure that our quality control documents are spot on.
Yeah.
And then sharing them with you guys, and then having you guys share that with the factories has been huge. So communication is number 1. Making sure that the numbers are transparent, QC, and then everything that we do with the contract.
Yeah.
And I'd love your feedback on that as well.
No, I think
that's our last chance to get some words in.
That's our cue. No, I think that's exactly. Yeah. I mean, I've said a couple times in the last 24 hours, we're not perfect, but through communication we can make up for those errors, right? Yeah. And I think we have fairly well, right?
Yeah.
Manufacturing is a hard business to be in. And the way I think that we've done our best to overcome that is, I have a big sign that I just put up, probably the biggest poster in our office, and it's just, objective is greater than subjective. And when you can define things that are normally subjective, right? I want a cup that's round. Okay, well, what kind of cup? What's the material? How round? What are the files? And the more you can define what those specifications are through communication, and then get them in paper and writing with everybody signing off on it.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's signing off.
There's no room for error, right? And so, for us, for example, we do that with you.
Yeah.
And then you're done, right? And then we go break it up into the different parts of the product, packaging, wood, metal, assembly. We talk to each of those partners and say, this is your objective instructions. If you stray, it's on you.
Right.
And they say, I get it, right? And when you line that all up in advance, you're light years ahead of everybody, literally.
Absolutely. So I think clear communication and then documentation wins.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I'll cheers to that.
All right, I think we can end on that. I don't think we have a choice but to end on that.
What does
How about that?
L'chaim mean?
L'chaim to life. Salute.
I like that. L'chaim.
Hi, man.
Yeah, L'chaim.
All right, guys. Hopefully, if all goes well, we'll meet here again in Libira for our next session. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Josh. And that's it. Till next time.
Peace.